in certain phases. So number one, you have to pick a niche. Number two, you have to set up the site. So this is sort of infrastructure type stuff. Number three, you'll be posting and publishing content on a website. And the fourth step is to get traffic and promote your site. Now let's dive into each one of the steps a little bit more deeply. So first off, you do need to pick a niche. There's a few things that you do have to focus on in picking a niche. It's one of the most important things. It's sort of the foundation of your site. So if you pick the wrong niche, you're sort of cursed to not be successful. Even if you do everything after that right, if you have the wrong niche, you're in trouble. So the first thing you have to think about with the niche is, are people searching for it? So basically we're getting traffic, we're aiming to get traffic from Google, free organic search traffic from Google. So that means people need to be searching for it on Google, and you want them to sort of be in the buyer's mindset. And you need to make sure enough people are searching for it. Now that brings us to keyword research. Now that's a whole topic for a whole other day, but there are tools out there like Keyword Kag, Longtail Pro. I think there's something called Keyword Revealer. There's other tools out there, and most of these, if not all, are paid tools. However, most of the time I do find it only necessary to pay for the tools for like a month or two. You could do a lot of keyword research in a month or two, and that's kind of all you need for like 6 or 12 months. The point is, you do have to use a tool to find out how many times people are searching for those terms on average per month. So there's a whole theory behind how many searches you want to go for, but I kind of like a blend of terms where people are not searching too often, like say under 500 times a month or 1,000 times a month, and then sort of, target some higher volume search terms like people are searching for 2,000 or 5,000 or 8,000 times. But the thing is, the more times people search for a term, the more valuable they are. And that means there's more competition. So if there's more value, if there's more money behind a certain set of keywords, that means you're going to have more competition. It may take longer to rank for these terms and just be a little more difficult because people are making money on it. And that means they're reinvesting into sites that are already established. The other thing to add about keyword research is you can take an approach that is basically the supply and demand of keywords. This is called the keyword golden ratio. It's a concept that I developed with information from others. So I didn't make up each of the pieces, but the keyword golden ratio is something that I developed over time. I tested it, I refined it, I asked other people to test it, and it's something that does work. If you just do some searches, check out the videos on the keyword golden ratio, you'll find not only is it a simple concept, but it does work. People are having great success with it. The other part of picking a niche is your interest level. Now, I'm not going to say you have to be passionate about it, or you could find some obscure tiny thing that you're obsessed with and just make a lot of money from that just because you're passionate about it. There does need to be a balance of what people are searching for. That is quite important, one of the most important things. But it is good if you have a light amount of interest, if you're kind of interested in the topic or keyword or set of products. That's really good. For example, I love beer. I'm a home brewer, I brew beer at home, and I'm just into beer. I like it. Does that mean I should create some sort of beer brewing blog or something like that? Well, maybe. I'm sure there's some specific areas where creating a blog around beer or home brewing could be profitable, but a lot of the information around home brewing beer is in forums or YouTube videos. So it may not be the perfect combination. The point is, it's good to have a little bit of interest, but you don't necessarily have to be passionate about it. A word of caution would be, you don't want to necessarily target your passion, go hard, and not pay attention to the keyword research. There must be a balance. Once you pick your niche, you're ready to set up the site. And this is phase 2. So again, this is sort of the infrastructure of your site. So you need to set up hosting. I normally recommend people use WordPress. You don't have to use WordPress, but it is very popular and there are many tools and plugins for WordPress. It just makes it easier if you've never set up a website before. So WordPress is very easy to set up, and you could use just about any hosting that you want to. Normally the cheapest package is good enough. I recommend one of the bigger companies, so I use personally Bluehost, SiteGround, a smaller company called MDD Hosting. Other people use HostGator, and there are dozens and dozens of other hosting companies, but for your first site, I would recommend just use one of the larger companies. You're probably going to be paying about, roughly $3 to $7 per month, and like most things, you get what you pay for. So if you find a company where you can get hosting for $1 a month or $2 a month, it's probably not going to be the best service. You're going to have, uptime issues, and most likely they are just a reseller from one of these other companies. So perhaps they've purchased a server package and they're just reselling it and, marking it up, and you're sharing a server with a bunch of other people. So if it's too cheap, I'd stay away from it. Work with big companies. Other considerations around your infrastructure and setting up the site would be a theme. So, I'm going to assume WordPress. So we'll just assume WordPress, but this generally applies to other types of content management systems as well. But you'll need a theme, and you can get some free themes. If you are going to use a free theme, I highly recommend using one from the company called Automattic, which is the parent company of WordPress. Because you're using a theme from the parent company, it's going to be secure, it'll be updated well, high quality, it's going to look beautiful. In fact, my very first Amazon affiliate site was created using a free, like the standard default WordPress 2012 theme with a white background, black text, totally clean, totally simple. That was my first site, and it did very well. So you don't necessarily need something fancy, and I'm personally a minimalist. I try to apply that to most areas of my life, not all, but most. And basically, the more options, the more choices you have in a theme, the more complicated it is, the more decisions you're going to have to make. And it turns out, if you just use something simple, you're much better off. Now, there are some themes that are oriented towards Amazon affiliate sites, and those could be a good choice. A couple of those, of which I'm an affiliate for, are the Ultimate Azon theme and Azon Authority. So those are great themes. They look nice right out of the box, and they integrate directly with the Amazon API, which is a nice thing to have. A couple other things that you have to think about with the site are your domain name. So the domain name is important, but you shouldn't spend too much time trying to figure out your domain name. You want it to be clear so people understand what the site's about. You don't want to be too clever. You don't want to have dashes or too many numbers. Like if you put a number in your domain name, then you're going to have to think about, are they going to type it in right? Will they put in the numeral, or are they going to write out the number? So I would avoid numbers most of the time and just keep it simple. So most of the time I recommend you make it a brandable type name, so you're not like painted in a corner. You don't want to have a site like Best Ballpoint Pen 2018. You can't really go anywhere from there. So make it more general, like, the best office supplies for your home office.com. Something like that, right? It's a little more general. You could add a lot more products into it. And last thing to note, when you are using WordPress or one of the other content management systems, you do have the ability to put in plugins, which is great. Plugins can do almost everything. However, the word of caution is there are so many plugins that you may be tempted to just put plugins in for anything that you can think of. There's probably a plugin for almost anything you could think of anyway. The problem is plugins will slow down your site. It's just a thing that happens when you load more things onto your site. It'll just get slower and slower. So I usually try to keep the plugins to a minimum. Again, I try to minimize, extra stuff as much as possible. So if you don't necessarily have to have the plugin in there, don't install it. So there are a few plugins that are helpful, things that help you reduce comment spam, things that keep your site secure, backing up your site, those sort of things, good. Do those. There's no substitute for those, right? You have to do that kind of thing to keep your site secure and reduce spam, right? Those are a no-brainer. But if you want to, say, add tables, or you want to have just some special kind of widget to do a special kind of thing, it turns out you probably don't need those things, and I would encourage you to, reduce as much as you can. Once you have your site set up, you need to publish content. My kind of sites have reviews of products, and you may be thinking, do I have to buy all the products to review them? No, you don't. Most of the time you can get great information from the product detail page on Amazon. You can read other reviews online. You may be able to check out forums that have information on products. It depends on the niche, right? But there are some very active forums out on the internet. You can watch YouTube videos to see people that actually did purchase the product and they are reviewing it. And of course, you can go to Amazon and read the reviews that are on there. Now, you can't copy those kind of reviews exactly. You can't quote them or anything like that. But you can get a lot of good information and summarize it. In fact, I recommend you go to all the sources I mentioned. In addition, the manufacturer can provide a lot of information too through their user manuals and just on their website. So if you compile all that information and curate it, and you summarize the information you can gather from all the sources that are available to you, you end up with a pretty good amount of information that you can write a review about. Now, a lot of people worry about how much content they should launch their site with. I say start small. And this is a project management idea and framework that I brought over to the internet marketing area, because here's some of the advice you will often see. Launch your site with 100 pieces of content or 200 pieces of content. You want to make a big site. That is bad advice, especially for a beginner, because if you try to publish that much content, you're going to get overwhelmed, and most likely you're going to quit before you get close to accomplishing it. In fact, even if you had unlimited resources, aka money, probably would have a hard time publishing 100 pieces of content if it's your first time starting a site. You won't know exactly what to put in the content. You may not be skilled in hiring freelance writers. You may not know how to, set up systems so you could publish a lot of content in a small amount of time. Those are skills that you can develop, but the point is, if you try and launch a site with too much content, you're gonna get in trouble. So what do I recommend? You should launch a site with just 10 pieces of content. 5 pieces of that content should be sort of informational, how-to content, something that will be helpful for the visitors. The other 5 pieces of content will be around product reviews. Now, the how-to content, the informational stuff, is not necessarily going to be money-making content. You can put affiliate links in the how-to content, but it's not there to convert visitors into buyers. Now, the affiliate review content, the other 5 pieces, that is directly related to converting a visitor into a buyer. The goal is to have that person read the review, understand the choice that they're about to make, they head over to Amazon and they make the purchase. That's the best way to launch a site. One of the huge benefits is 10 pieces of content is totally doable. So let's say you have to write it yourself because you're just getting started and your budget's small. Now, that's what I did. I wrote basically all the content on my very first site. Nowadays, I don't write reviews too often because, well, it's not the most fun thing to do in the world. So I usually hire a writer and I can provide them with a template and other information that helps them write it. And then I can just edit it. It's a little bit faster to edit than to write from scratch, at least for me. So the point is, 10 pieces of content is doable if you have to write it yourself, or you probably can put together a budget. It's probably going to cost between $100 to $200, give or take, to hire a few writers to write 10 articles. So it's a decent chunk of money, but depending on where you're starting, you should be able to pull together that amount of money. Now, the other part is 10 posts is quite manageable. So not only can you put together the budget, but you could probably hire a couple writers to work with you for a few weeks and you could end up with 10 pieces of content. You can see the finish line with 10 articles, right? If you're thinking of 100, 150 articles, that's gonna take you like 6 months and it's overwhelming. So start small, start with 10, and that's plenty to launch with, and then you can move on to step 4. Step 4 is getting traffic and promoting your site. This is one of the more complicated things that you're gonna have to work on. The easiest way, and the first thing you should do, is to tell your family and friends. So, let them know. Go on Facebook, go on Instagram, wherever you sort of communicate with your friends. Email, maybe you send them a letter in the mail. I have no idea. However you get in touch with them, let them know you're launching a site, have them go check it out. They are going to be interested in what you're working on. They like you and they want to help you out. So have them check out the site. You may not necessarily, want to ask them for tips because, they may not know what they're talking about. Keep that in mind. But they do want to help you. So always accept feedback. Get the site out there, start getting feedback, and then you can always go back and improve the content, the written word. You can improve the design and graphics. Whenever you have time in the future, you can go back and do that stuff. Our main goal to get traffic to the site is through Google. You want someone to search for a term in Google. They'll see the results. Hopefully your website will be one of those results. They'll click on it, head to your website, and they they read the information on the site. They get a better idea about the product that they want, and then they click your affiliate link over to Amazon and they make a purchase. If you're lucky, they buy a few things. I know when I buy something on Amazon, I almost always check with my wife to see if she wants to put something in the order, and we usually order 3 or 4 things whenever we attempt to order just one. So hopefully that sort of thing is going to happen for you, and that's the ultimate, right? That's the way you can get huge amounts of traffic to your site, and basically you'll be able to scale in that way if you can get a few more keywords that you're ranking a little bit higher for. Over time, you're able to get tons of traffic to your site. The main task in getting your site to rank better is link building. Now, that's a huge topic. In fact, I will put a playlist in the description for SEO and link building and doing outreach, but I like to keep things simple, right? Again, going back to the project management idea and being effective, the thing is you can do hundreds of different tasks that could potentially help with your ranking, but the biggest thing you could do is get more backlinks. So I like to keep it simple with a 2-step process where you go out and you look for related blogs and you comment on those blogs. 2 things happens when you do that. So the first thing that happens is you probably will get a link to your main domain. Most of the time when you comment on a blog, you type in your name in the name field, and then for your website, you put in the URL for your main domain. Don't try and be cute. Don't try and get a link directly to your post. Just put in your main domain name, okay? And then you leave a comment. It does need to be an authentic, genuine comment. You want to add value. I recommend you read their post or at least skim it and make a intelligent comment. It's great to ask a question. It's great to provide a compliment in there. It's great to interact with some of the other readers and commenters on that blog. And the other benefit, so the first thing is you get a link on your name, right, to your main domain name. The other thing is you actually start networking within the niche. If you're lucky, the blogger will go check out your site and then know who you are. This comes into play for the second part of the link building, which is guest posting. So eventually you do want to build a relationship through further blog commenting with that specific blogger, potentially sending emails and just corresponding with them so that you're sort of an internet friend with them, right? You want them to know who you are. And at some point in the future, I would say between 2 weeks and 2 months, you can ask them if you can guest post on their site. Now, you could imagine that they get a lot of inquiries. People are just asking them, hey, can I guest post on your site? Can you put a link on my site? All that kind of stuff. It comes off very pushy and a little spammy if you do that, right? So if you come in and you start asking for stuff right away, it's not cool, right? Nobody wants to sort of be put in that position. So a better way to do it is through developing a relationship. So when you comment on their blog, they're going to remember that. If you email them or sign up for their email list, they'll remember that too. And people really like it when you comment on their blogs. And further, to take it a little bit deeper, you can connect with them on social media, find out what channel they're most active on. Maybe it's Instagram, maybe it's Facebook, maybe it's Twitter, but connect with them there, see where they spend their time, and then interact with them there. If you do that, you're gonna stand out so much more than your competition. Again, people are just sending out emails these days and just asking for stuff. Again, just not cool. So quick recap. And this is what I call high touch outreach, where there's a lot of touch points, it takes time, and it really separates you from your competition who are trying to get links as well. So those are the 4 main steps. You need to pick your niche. Number 2, you're going to have to set up your site. That's where you pick out your domain name, probably set up WordPress, and set up a theme. The third part is around publishing content. I recommend you publish 10 pieces of content to start out with, where 50% of it is affiliate reviews and the other 50% is helpful content. Think about how-to content, just informational content. And the 4th step is promotion and link building. And after that, you're really just doing sort of the same thing. You rinse and repeat, right? You end up adding more content and then doing more link building. And that's sort of the way to do it to grow your site. If you